My name is Alexis, a 22-year-old business major on full scholarship. Our family bakery, Sweet Heritage, was my second home since childhood. While I chased academic dreams, my brother Tyler pursued professional gaming. Then came the financial crisis and their ultimatum: abandon college to save the bakery and fund his gaming career. I never imagined choosing between my future and my family would uncover a secret that would shatter everything we built. Let me tell you how standing my ground exposed a truth that broke my parents and changed our lives forever. Before I dive into my story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to make a difficult choice between family obligations and your own dreams. Trust me, what happened next in my journey might just give you the courage you need for your own situation. Growing up in Sweet Heritage Bakery shaped every aspect of my childhood. I can still smell the butter and vanilla that filled our home above the shop, the alarm buzzing at 4:30 in the morning when I would stumble downstairs in my pajamas to find Mom, Margaret, already kneading dough with flour dusting her cheeks. Dad, Robert, would be reviewing orders and planning deliveries, always slipping me a freshly baked chocolate chip cookie with a wink before I headed off to school. The bakery was more than a business. It was 3 generations of family history poured into every recipe. My grandmother taught my mother how to achieve the perfect flakiness in our signature apple turnovers, and Mom taught me. Customers would line up around the block on holidays just to secure our famous cinnamon rolls. Mrs. Jenkins, our most loyal customer, once drove 2 hours after moving just to get our sourdough for her daughter's wedding. Everyone in town knew the Lawrence family through our baked goods, and that connection to community made me proud even as a child. My natural ability with numbers emerged early. While other kids struggled with fractions, I quickly grasped them through measuring ingredients. By high school, I was helping Dad with inventory spreadsheets and suggesting more efficient ordering systems. When I graduated valedictorian with a full scholarship to State University for Business Administration, the pride in my parents' eyes made all those late nights studying worth it. As the first person in our family to attend college, I carried not just my dreams but theirs too. Junior year was going perfectly. My 3.9 GPA put me at the top of my class, and professors were already connecting me with internship opportunities at consulting firms. Every accomplishment felt like justification for the sacrifices my parents made to support my education, even as they continued the daily grind at the bakery. Before everything fell apart, we were truly close. Mom would call every Wednesday evening just to check in, sending care packages with experimental cookie recipes for me to rate. Dad was quieter, but showed his love through practical gestures, like surprising me with a new laptop when mine crashed during midterms. Our Sunday family dinners whenever I came home were sacred, filled with laughter and updates about our lives. My brother Tyler was 19 and had discovered competitive gaming during his senior year of high school. What started as a hobby quickly consumed his attention. Rather than attending community college as planned, he convinced our parents that professional gaming could become a lucrative career. They were skeptical but supportive, allowing him to live at home while pursuing this unconventional path. I admired his passion even when I didn't fully understand his world of tournaments and streaming. College gave me my first taste of independence. I shared an apartment with Jessica, an architecture major who quickly became my closest friend. To cover expenses not included in my scholarship, I worked 15 hours weekly at the campus bookstore. Between classes, work, and my relationship with Marcus, an engineering student I met sophomore year, I was building a life that felt entirely my own while still honoring my roots. Marcus understood my dedication to both education and family. He would often drive me home on weekends when I wanted to help at the bakery, using the time to catch up on podcasts about entrepreneurship. His own immigrant parents had built a successful landscaping business, so he appreciated the blend of family legacy and innovation I hoped to bring to Sweet Heritage once I graduated. Looking back, the warning signs at the bakery were subtle at first. The trendy new bakery, Flour and Company, opened just 2 blocks away with its minimalist aesthetic and social media presence attracting younger customers. When I suggested creating an Instagram account featuring our classic recipes with modern twists, Dad dismissed it as unnecessary fluff. Mom seemed more receptive, but deferred to him as always. During weekend visits, I noticed inventory looking thinner than usual. The special display case for wedding cake samples stood empty multiple times, with Mom explaining they were streamlining options. Late one night, I overheard them arguing about cash flow in hushed tones that immediately ceased when I entered the kitchen. Meanwhile, Tyler spent increasingly more time in his room gaming and less time helping with bakery deliveries as he had promised. When he did emerge, he spoke excitedly about upcoming tournaments with prize pools that seemed to justify his absence from family responsibilities. Despite these concerning patterns, I remained optimistic. Just 2 more semesters until graduation, then I could apply everything I was learning to modernize our family business. My marketing professor praised my analysis of small business revival strategies, unaware I was essentially creating a rescue plan for Sweet Heritage. I even started a research project on how traditional businesses could compete in the digital marketplace, hoping to prove to Dad that my education would directly benefit us all. I believed we could weather any storm together. Family always came first, but I never imagined that principle would soon be weaponized against my future. Spring break usually meant a week of catching up on sleep and helping at the bakery. This time, pulling into our driveway, something felt different. The bakery windows, normally showcasing an abundant display of pastries, looked sparse. Inside, the usual buzz of activity had slowed to a quiet hum. Mom looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes despite her forced smile. Dad moved slower, his shoulders hunched with invisible weight. We had to adjust our hours, Mom explained when I asked about the close sign already hanging at 6 in the evening. Just until things pick up again. People are watching their spending these days. Dinner that night was unnervingly quiet. Tyler kept checking his phone under the table, barely participating in conversation. When I mentioned my upcoming finals and potential summer internship opportunities, my parents exchanged a look I couldn't decipher. The next morning, I found Dad at the kitchen table surrounded by bills, something he usually handled privately in his office. When he saw me, he hastily gathered them, but not before I glimpsed several marked past due. "Alexis, sit down," he said, his voice unusually hesitant. "There's something we need to discuss." What followed was a conversation that shifted the ground beneath my feet. They had needed to borrow from my remaining college fund, the portion set aside for senior year expenses not covered by scholarship. Just temporarily, they assured me. Business would improve by fall, and everything would be replaced. "Family comes first," Mom said, reaching for my hand across the table. "We knew you would understand." I did try to understand. The pandemic had hit small businesses hard. Supply costs had risen. Flour and Company was pulling customers away. All logical explanations that I processed through the shock, nodding mechanically while calculating how this would affect my carefully planned budget. That afternoon, I wandered into Tyler's room to see if he was feeling the financial strain too. Instead, I found him surrounded by new equipment, a professional gaming chair, high-resolution monitors, and a custom keyboard that I later learned cost nearly $400 alone. "Mom and Dad helped me upgrade," he explained, not looking away from his screen. "It's an investment in my future. This setup will help me qualify for bigger tournaments. The Battlezone Championship next month has a $50,000 prize pool." When I questioned my parents about this apparent contradiction, they became defensive. "Tyler's equipment is essential for his career path," Dad insisted. "Just like your textbooks are for yours." "He could really make it big," Mom added, eyes bright with a hope I hadn't seen directed at my academic achievements. "His coach says he has real potential." Coach? This was the first I'd heard of someone professionally guiding Tyler's gaming. Before I could dig deeper, they shifted the conversation to what they called a practical solution for everyone. "What if you took next semester off?" Dad suggested, as if proposing I sleep in an extra hour. "Just until the bakery stabilizes. You could work here full-time, apply your business knowledge directly." When I protested about delaying graduation and potentially losing scholarship momentum, Mom dismissed my concerns. "Real-world experience counts for more than book learning anyway." I tried offering alternatives, pulling out my laptop to show them the marketing plan I developed specifically for Sweet Heritage. Social media strategies, community partnership opportunities, seasonal promotion ideas that would cost little but potentially boost sales significantly. Dad barely glanced at it. Fancy presentations don't pay bills, Alexis. After hours of tense discussion, I compromised. I would take 2 online classes instead of a full course load, allowing me to work remotely from home 3 days a week while maintaining my academic standing. It wasn't ideal, but it seemed like a reasonable middle ground that would prevent further raiding of my college fund. Before returning to campus, I sought out Eleanor, who had worked at our bakery since before I was born. She found me in the storage room, inventorying supplies. "Your parents are good people in a tough spot," she said, carefully measuring her words. "But you should know not all money problems come from where they say." When I pressed for clarification, she shook her head. "Just keep your eyes open, sweetheart. And protect yourself." Back at our apartment, I confided in Jessica and Marcus about the situation. Jessica immediately noted the inequality between how my parents treated my education versus Tyler's gaming. "Why is his dream worth investing in but yours requires sacrifice?" she asked bluntly. Marcus was more concerned about the financial ethics. "They can't just take money earmarked for your education without consequences. What happens if business doesn't improve by fall?" His question haunted me as I returned to classes. My concentration fractured as I juggled coursework with daily calls from Mom, each conversation revealing new urgency in the bakery's situation. I researched small business grants, created detailed marketing materials they could implement immediately, and even offered to take extra shifts at my campus job to contribute more financially. Meanwhile, Tyler posted about new gaming accessories on social media. When I texted him asking if he could pick up more hours at the bakery, his responses were sporadic and non-committal. The resentment growing inside me felt foreign and uncomfortable, colliding with the lifetime of family loyalty I'd been raised to prioritize. Still, I believed we could find balance, that my education and the bakery could both survive if we worked together strategically. I even scheduled a meeting with my academic advisor to plan for worst-case scenarios, securing assurances that my scholarship could be held for 1 semester, if absolutely necessary. I was determined to be both a good daughter and a successful student. The possibility that these identities might become fundamentally incompatible hadn't yet fully registered. That realization would arrive with devastating clarity during finals week. The call came at midnight during finals week, just hours before my business ethics exam. Mom's voice broke through sobs, barely coherent as she begged me to come home immediately. Something about final notices and equipment failures. The bakery might not open tomorrow. They needed me now. "Mom, I have finals," I explained, already calculating how rescheduling would affect my GPA. "Can this wait 3 days? I can leave right after my last exam." "This can't wait, Alexis. Family comes first, remember?" That familiar refrain hit differently this time, an obligation rather than a connection. Still, I emailed my professor, Dr. Phillips, requesting emergency rescheduling. His response was sympathetic but firm. University policy required documentation for family emergencies, and financial issues rarely qualified. Deferring would mean a potential grade reduction. I took the exam on 2 hours of sleep, then drove straight home, my mind cycling between worry for my family and frustration at the timing. Walking into the bakery after hours, I found my parents and Tyler sitting at a corner table, an unusual formality that immediately set off alarms. "We need to talk about your future," Dad began, no greeting, no questions about my exam or well-being. What followed wasn't a discussion but an ultimatum. They had already contacted the university about complete withdrawal procedures. I would leave school immediately to manage the bakery full-time while they focused on back-end operations. My business knowledge would be applied here, not in some corporate setting. This wasn't temporary anymore. This was my new reality. "You already contacted my university?" The betrayal of that action, taken without my knowledge or consent, felt like physical pain. "Without even talking to me first?" "We knew you'd argue," Mom said, as if that justified everything. Sometimes parents have to make hard decisions for the family. The financial reality they finally revealed was far worse than I'd imagined. The bakery was 3 months behind on rent. The main oven needed repairs costing thousands. Their loan application had been denied due to existing credit issues. Most shocking of all, they had cashed out their modest retirement accounts months ago just to keep operating. Where did all that money go? I asked, struggling to reconcile these catastrophic circumstances with the stable business I thought we had. The uncomfortable glance between my parents and Tyler should have been my first clear warning. Instead, they launched into explanations about rising costs, reduced customer traffic, and unexpected equipment failures. Then came the revelation about Tyler's gaming career that left me speechless. They had invested over $15,000 in his equipment, coaching, and tournament entries over the past year. This included flying him to regional competitions and hiring a professional gamer as his personal coach. He's on the verge of breaking through, Dad insisted. His coach says with the right support, he could be earning 6 figures by next year. Tyler nodded eagerly. The Battlezone Championship next month has scouts from major teams. If I place in the top 10, I could get sponsorship deals worth more than you'd make with your degree in the first 3 years. When I asked about his current earnings, the vague responses about building his brand and investing in the future told me everything. He hadn't actually won anything significant yet. This was all speculation, a gamble with money we clearly didn't have, while my education with guaranteed returns was deemed expendable. The manipulation escalated when I didn't immediately agree. Mom cried about sacrifices she and Dad had made for my education already. After all we've done for you, you can't give us 1 year? Dad's approach was anger. So, your fancy degree is more important than your family's legacy? Then the business that paid for your braces and dance lessons and SAT prep courses. Even Tyler joined in. You always get everything. The grades, the scholarship, the praise. Can I have this one chance to succeed too? Each word twisted the knife deeper, reframing my education as selfishness rather than the achievement they had once celebrated. When I tried explaining that withdrawing now would mean losing my scholarship permanently, potentially wasting tens of thousands in already invested tuition, Dad dismissed it as sunk cost. That night, unable to sleep in my childhood bedroom, I searched the bakery office for more information. Hidden beneath catering contracts, I found notices from the IRS about unfiled quarterly taxes. Letters from vendors threatening to cut supplies due to irregular payments. A collection agency notice for a credit card I never knew existed. The next morning, I overheard Dad arguing with someone about payment terms, his voice carrying the desperate edge of someone running out of options. When I tried asking Tyler about his actual tournament record, he became defensively vague, changing the subject to his growing Twitch followers instead. Caught between suspicion and family loyalty, I called Dr. Phillips about academic options. His advice was clear. Your education is an investment in your entire future. Be very careful about abandoning it for a business that seems to be failing despite having your parents' full attention already. What would change if you were there too? His question crystallized my doubts. What would my presence actually solve? If 2 experienced bakers couldn't make it work, how would adding a not yet graduated business student change that fundamental equation? Marcus urged me to investigate further before making any decision. Something doesn't add up, Alexis. Bakeries have tight margins, but they don't typically collapse this dramatically without other factors. His suspicion planted a seed I wasn't yet ready to nurture. Instead, I spent the next 2 days reviewing the bakery's books, creating a potential business rescue plan, and finishing my finals remotely. If I was going to sacrifice my education, I needed to believe it could actually make a difference. Despite the emotional turmoil, I completed my finals with solid grades. Dr. Phillips and my other professors had been surprisingly supportive once I explained the situation, allowing me to take exams remotely. This academic victory felt hollow, though, as daily calls from my parents intensified, their desperation growing with each conversation. We need your answer now, Alexis, Dad demanded during our last call. Either you're coming home to help the family business, or you're choosing yourself over us. It's that simple. His framing left no room for nuance, no acknowledgement that my education was itself a family investment. When I suggested a compromise, working at the bakery while completing my degree online, he exploded. We don't need part-time help. We need full commitment. If you can't give that, then maybe you're not the daughter we raised you to be. That statement broke something essential between us. The implicit threat of emotional disownment if I didn't comply with their demands crystallized my decision. I'll be home tomorrow, I said quietly, but not to withdraw from school. To get my things. I'm staying in my program. The silence that followed spoke volumes. Finally, Mom's voice, tight with controlled anger. If that's your choice, don't expect us to welcome you with open arms. Arriving home the next day, I found my childhood bedroom already transformed. My belongings were packed in cardboard boxes labeled Alexa stuff. Photos of my graduation and academic achievements had been removed from the hallway wall. The message was clear. If I wouldn't serve the family's immediate needs, I was being symbolically erased. My parents barely spoke to me, moving through the house like I was already gone. Tyler attempted awkward mediation, suggesting I could help just until he won his first major tournament, as if his hypothetical success would magically solve problems that had been years in the making. While retrieving my hidden high school yearbook from the closet shelf, my hand brushed against an unfamiliar envelope. Curiosity overcame respect for privacy, especially given how they had already violated mine by contacting my university without permission. Inside, I found bank statements showing substantial cash withdrawals, far exceeding normal bakery operating expenses. Mixed among them were casino receipts dated over the past 18 months, some for thousands of dollars. A separate account statement in Dad's name showed deposits and withdrawals that never appeared in the bakery books. Most damning of all, I found a travel itinerary for Tyler's supposed tournament in Atlantic City that perfectly aligned with a major poker championship at the Borgata Casino. There were no gaming competitions scheduled there that weekend. My hands shook as pieces clicked into place. Eleanor's cryptic warning. The defensive responses when I asked for financial details. Tyler's inability to show actual tournament earnings despite expensive investments in his career. The rapid cash drain that couldn't be explained by normal business challenges. I found them in the kitchen, a familiar setting for what would be the most painful conversation of our lives. Wordlessly, I spread the documents on the table. Dad's face drained of color. Mom started crying immediately. Tyler looked like he might vomit. How long? I asked simply. Dad's denial crumbled under my steady gaze. The pandemic started it, he finally admitted. We were closed for months. I was just trying to make quick cash to cover the gap, but then I needed to recover losses. And He trailed off, the classic spiral of addiction hanging unspoken between us. Mom's confession hurt even more. I've been covering for him for years. Moving money between accounts. Making excuses to vendors. Taking cash advances on credit cards you didn't know about. But it was Tyler's revelation that truly shattered me. It's not just Dad, he said, unable to meet my eyes. I started online poker while streaming gaming sessions. The coaching payments were actually covering gambling debts. Dad and I sometimes go together. The gaming career, the investment in his future, the potential sponsorships, all elaborate fictions covering a shared addiction that had consumed our family's financial security and was now threatening my future too. So all this time, you were using bakery profits and my college fund to gamble? The betrayal crystallized into something sharp and clear. And now you want me to drop out to keep the money flowing and maintain your secret? Their reactions confirmed my worst suspicions. Rather than showing remorse, they immediately shifted to damage control. This stays within the family, Dad insisted, his voice hardening. If customers or suppliers found out, we'd lose everything overnight. If you help us get through this rough patch, Mom added, sudden calculation replacing her tears, we'll make sure you can go back to school eventually. We'll pay your tuition ourselves once the bakery recovers. Tyler joined the manipulation. Think about my reputation too. If people find out, my streaming career is over before it starts. The realization hit me with stunning clarity. They weren't asking for help to save a legitimate family business. They wanted my business skills to cover up financial misconduct and addiction. They needed my credibility and labor to continue a cycle that would inevitably collapse again. My future wasn't being sacrificed for our family legacy, but for their secrets. I stood up, suddenly calm in the eye of this emotional hurricane. I'm leaving now. I love you all, but I won't destroy myself to save you from the truth. Mom grabbed my arm. You can't just abandon your family. I'm not abandoning you, I replied, gently removing her hand. I'm refusing to enable you. There's a difference. As I carried boxes to my car, Tyler followed me outside. What am I supposed to do now? He asked, suddenly looking younger than his 19 years. Get help, I answered honestly. And stop pretending gambling is a gaming career. You're only fooling yourself. Dad watched silently from the porch as I drove away, my rearview mirror reflecting the home and business that had defined my identity for 22 years, now revealed as something I never truly knew at all. The first weeks of independence were terrifying. Jessica generously offered her couch while I figured out next steps, but my immediate financial situation was dire. My parents had been joint account holders on my checking account since childhood, and they emptied it the day after our confrontation. My meal plan was tied to campus housing I could no longer afford without family contribution. The part-time bookstore job barely covered basic necessities. Panic threatened to overwhelm me until Marcus suggested breaking the problem into manageable pieces. One crisis at a time, he said, helping me create a prioritized list. First came an emergency meeting with the financial aid office. I didn't share the full family drama, but explained I was now financially independent due to a family breach of trust. The compassionate counselor helped me apply for emergency aid and additional student loans to cover housing. Working double shifts at the campus cafe provided immediate cash for essentials. Marcus's parents offered their guest room if things got desperate, a kindness that brought me to tears, though I was determined not to need it. The most practical help came from Mr. Harrison, an attorney I found through the university's legal aid program. His hourly rate was manageable, and his expertise in family financial disputes proved invaluable. Document everything, he advised during our first consultation. Timeline, communications, evidence of funds taken without consent. Your parents have committed financial misconduct at minimum, possibly fraud if they misrepresented information to lenders using your details. While legal action was an absolute last resort, having documentation created leverage for potential recovery of my stolen funds. I meticulously organized bank statements, text messages, and notes from conversations, creating a paper trail that told the unvarnished truth about what had happened. Finding affordable housing became my next priority. After viewing several questionable options, I discovered a tiny studio apartment above a bookstore. The rent was manageable with my cafe wages, especially with the bookstore owner offering discount for occasional help with inventory. The space was barely 300 square feet, but it was mine, secure from family intrusion. Throughout this upheaval, I maintained my academic standing through sheer determination. Professors who might have been rigid about attendance policies showed unexpected flexibility when I explained I was establishing financial independence. My business ethics professor even used aspects of my situation as an anonymous case study, helping me process the experience through an academic lens. Family businesses often blur ethical boundaries, he noted during office hours. The emotional entanglement makes objective decision-making nearly impossible without clear governance structures. His analysis helped me see our situation as a predictable pattern rather than a unique betrayal, somewhat easing the personal pain while strengthening my professional understanding. Meanwhile, I channeled my business training into creating a comprehensive rescue plan for Sweet Heritage. Not because I intended to return, but because having a solution represented control over a situation that had left me feeling powerless. The document detailed operational improvements, financial restructuring options, and marketing strategies specifically designed to rebuild community trust. I also researched gambling addiction resources, compiling information on treatment programs, support groups, and financial counseling services specifically for families affected by gambling disorders. Knowledge became my coping mechanism, a way to process trauma through practical action. Eleanor reached out 2 weeks after I left, concerned when I stopped appearing at the bakery. Our conversation confirmed suspicions that she had known or guessed about Dad's gambling, but felt powerless to intervene. Her insights into daily operations helped refine my business recovery plan, adding practical details about inventory management and staffing that only an insider would know. As my immediate crisis stabilized, I began considering how to approach reconciliation on my terms. Complete estrangement from my family wasn't my goal, but neither was returning to dysfunctional patterns. With Mr. Harrison's guidance, I developed conditions for potential reconnection that would protect my boundaries while offering them a path forward. 1 month after walking out, I texted my parents requesting a meeting at a neutral location, a coffee shop halfway between campus and home. To my surprise, they agreed immediately. Even more surprisingly, Tyler asked to attend, saying he had something important to contribute. The 4 of us gathered around a corner table, the awkwardness palpable. I had prepared thoroughly, bringing copies of documents and a clear agenda. What I hadn't prepared for was their appearance. Dad looked older, the confident posture replaced by a man visibly carrying shame. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she arranged and rearranged her napkin. Tyler couldn't maintain eye contact. I began by stating facts without accusation. The timeline of financial deception. The amount taken from my accounts without proper consent. The false pretenses used to justify these actions. The consequences to my education and living situation. Throughout, I maintained professional composure, as if presenting a case study rather than my own life. Here are your options, I concluded, sliding across a folder containing 2 documents. The first is my proposed plan for bakery recovery, including addiction treatment requirements and financial transparency measures. The second is documentation I'm prepared to share with your creditors, suppliers, and the Small Business Association if you refuse the first option. Dad started to object, but Tyler interrupted him. Listen to her, he said with unexpected firmness. She's right. We need help, not more secrets. His support shifted the dynamic dramatically. As it turned out, Tyler had attended his first Gamblers Anonymous meeting the previous week, a step neither of our parents had yet taken. His emerging clarity strengthened my position as I outlined specific conditions. Professional financial oversight for bakery operations. Regular addiction counseling for both Dad and Tyler, with attendance verification. A formal repayment plan for my stolen funds, with interest. My complete independence from family business operations. Written acknowledgement of the harm done and commitments to recovery. This isn't punishment, I explained as Mom wiped away tears. These are boundaries. I want to have a relationship with you, but it can't be based on exploitation or enabling addiction. The meeting ended with tentative agreement to my terms. Dad clearly struggled with relinquishing financial control, but Tyler's unexpected alliance with me created pressure he couldn't easily dismiss. They left with my business recovery plan and resources for addiction treatment, the first step toward possible reconciliation. Over the following weeks, small signs of progress emerged. The bakery began working with a financial advisor I recommended through my business program connections. Dad reluctantly attended his first GA meeting, though he insisted it was just to support Tyler. Mom called to ask about proper citation format for the written acknowledgement I'd requested, a small indicator she was taking that requirement seriously. A local bank agreed to conditional refinancing based on the business plan I'd created, providing breathing room for implementing structural changes. The loan officer, impressed with the plan's thoroughness, even offered me a part-time consulting position after graduation, recognizing value in my first-hand experience with family business intervention. Throughout this period, I maintained firm boundaries. I declined invitations to family dinner, suggesting coffee meetings instead. I refused to work in the bakery, even temporarily, though I provided detailed written recommendations when asked specific questions. My participation remained consultative rather than operational, protecting my independence while still offering support. This balanced approach brought unexpected rewards. The refinanced bakery began implementing my marketing suggestions, creating social media accounts that rapidly attracted former customers. Tyler found part-time work at a local tech repair shop, developing legitimate skills while continuing addiction treatment. Most significantly, my parents began acknowledging their role in our family crisis rather than deflecting responsibility. 6 months after walking away, I had rebuilt a life that was entirely mine. My tiny apartment felt like genuine home, decorated with intentional simplicity. My academic performance had recovered and even improved, the practical application of business principles giving me insights my classmates lacked. The crisis that nearly destroyed my future had ultimately accelerated my professional growth and personal independence. The victory wasn't in punishing my family, but in establishing a relationship based on truth rather than obligation. I could now choose connection from a position of strength rather than exploitation. The transformation over 6 months surprised everyone, including me. Sweet Heritage began showing modest profits again after implementing the strategies I'd recommended. My business advisor connected me with a small business consultant who specialized in family enterprises, creating a professional buffer between my recommendations and their implementation. The bakery's social media presence flourished under Mom's unexpected talent for storytelling. She posted about traditional recipes with modern twists, exactly as I had suggested a year earlier, now receiving enthusiastic customer engagement. Their transparent communication about refocusing on quality over expansion successfully explained the scaled-back operations without revealing the financial chaos behind it. My own professional trajectory accelerated in unexpected ways. The financial advisory firm where I completed my internship created a special project examining family business dynamics, allowing me to transform my personal trauma into professional expertise. My professors encouraged me to develop my experience into a comprehensive case study, with identifying details changed to protect privacy. Tyler's progress in recovery revealed a brother I barely knew existed. Without gambling and gaming consuming his identity, he discovered genuine talent for computer systems and customer service at the tech company. His weekly addiction support meetings became non-negotiable in his schedule, and he even began speaking at local high schools about avoiding the path he had taken. I never realized how the constant dopamine hits from gaming primed me for gambling addiction, he told me during one of our now regular lunch meetings. When the pandemic hit and everything went online, it was so easy to toggle between gaming streams and poker sites. No one could see what I was really doing. His candor helped me understand how my family's crisis wasn't solely about moral failings, but about vulnerability to addiction accelerated by unprecedented circumstances. This perspective didn't excuse their behavior toward me, but provided context that helped my healing process. My parents' evolution proceeded more unevenly. Dad struggled with the humility required for recovery, attending meetings irregularly and sometimes slipping into defensiveness about one mistake defining him. Yet even these resistance patterns diminished over time as the structured recovery program gradually rewired his thinking. Mom's transformation proved more profound. After decades of enabling and covering for Dad's addiction, she found her voice through Al-Anon meetings for families affected by addiction. She began setting her own boundaries, insisting on separate bank accounts and financial transparency. Our conversations shifted from guilt trips about family loyalty to genuine interest in my accomplishments and well-being. I always thought protecting the family meant hiding problems, she admitted during a coffee meeting. Now I realize that secrets were destroying us from within. Their adjustment to my adult boundaries remained challenging. Dad occasionally lapsed into comments about me, abandoning the family business, triggering tense moments. Mom sometimes called with bakery questions that revealed she still saw me as partially responsible for its success. Each time, I gently but firmly redirected, maintaining the professional consultant role rather than dutiful daughter. My personal healing journey included therapy sessions where I processed the complex grief of losing my idealized family narrative. The therapist helped me understand that my parents' behavior reflected their own trauma and addiction patterns rather than a targeted rejection of me specifically. You can love them while still holding them accountable, she reminded me during particularly difficult sessions. Boundaries aren't punishment. They're the foundation for healthier relationships. This perspective helped me navigate the conflicting emotions that surfaced as I built my independent life. The pride in creating security for myself sometimes collided with lingering grief for the supportive family I thought I had. Accomplishments like paying my first full security deposit felt simultaneously empowering and lonely, markers of both success and separation. Marcus remained steadfastly supportive, never pressuring me to reconcile faster than felt right. His family included me in holiday celebrations, creating space for new traditions while respecting my occasional need to attempt family gatherings with my own parents. This chosen family helped fill emotional gaps while I rebuilt connections with my biological one. Jessica and other friends formed a reliable support system, celebrating milestones like securing my first professional job offer or submitting my senior thesis on family business ethics. Their consistent presence reminded me that relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation could provide genuine security. My relationship with the bakery itself transformed most dramatically. What had been my expected inheritance and obligation became simply a business I occasionally consulted for, professionally rather than emotionally. I helped them modernize their online ordering system and develop seasonal marketing campaigns, all with clear contracts and defined compensation. This professional distance allowed me to appreciate Sweet Heritage's positive community impact without feeling responsible for its survival. When customers responded enthusiastically to their rebranded image and more consistent quality, I could genuinely celebrate without the pressure of personal identification with their success. The family business began functioning as a business rather than an extension of family dysfunction, with professional boundaries replacing emotional entanglement. Dad reluctantly accepted the oversight of a financial manager who reported to the bank as a condition of their loan restructuring. Mom flourished in customer relations once freed from constant crisis management. Even Tyler contributed occasional technical support for their new online systems, applying skills from his legitimate job. Watching this evolution from a distance provided validation that my selfish choice to prioritize my education had actually benefited everyone. Had I sacrificed my future as demanded, the underlying issues would have remained unaddressed, merely postponing inevitable collapse while destroying another life in the process. This realization brought unexpected peace. What had felt like abandoning my family ultimately forced necessary change that might save them. The truth that initially broke them was gradually rebuilding something more sustainable and authentic than what came before. My graduation day arrived with conflicting emotions. Walking across the stage to receive my business degree represented victory over circumstances that nearly derailed my future. The pride of this achievement collided with awareness of the painful journey required to reach this moment. Scanning the audience, I spotted Jessica and Marcus cheering enthusiastically from the front section, their support unwavering throughout the crisis. Behind them sat my parents and Tyler, their presence simultaneously comforting and complicated. They had asked permission to attend, a small but significant acknowledgement of my boundaries. The contrast between my expectations and reality struck me profoundly. 3 years ago, I had imagined this day as the triumphant beginning of my return to the family business, armed with knowledge to modernize our legacy. Instead, it marked my entry into an independent career path I had never anticipated, shaped by necessary separation from family expectations. The painful necessity of exposing long-hidden secrets had altered everything. What began as my parents demanding I sacrifice my education to save their bakery had transformed into a reckoning with addiction, financial misconduct, and dysfunctional family patterns. The truth initially shattered our carefully maintained image, but from those fragments, something more authentic gradually emerged. My journey from obedient daughter to independent woman hadn't followed any path I recognized from peers or popular narratives. While classmates navigated normal separation from parents through apartments and first jobs, I had experienced a forced reconstruction of my entire family identity. The skills required for this transition, from financial independence to emotional boundary setting, weren't covered in any course curriculum. After the ceremony, we gathered at a nearby restaurant, the celebration tentative but genuine. The written acknowledgement my parents had finally completed sat in my apartment, documenting their recognition of harm done and commitments to ongoing recovery. This formal accountability, initially resisted as unnecessary, had become the foundation for our reconstructed relationship. "We're proud of you," Dad said, the words simple but meaningful from someone who struggled with admitting any perspective beyond his own. "Not just for graduating, but for standing your ground when we were wrong." Mom added tearfully, "You saved us by refusing to save us the way we wanted." Their acknowledgement validated the counterintuitive truth I had discovered. Family loyalty doesn't require self-destruction. Sometimes the most loving choice requires painful honesty rather than comfortable enablement. Had I abandoned my education to manage the bakery, I would have merely extended the cycle of secrets and financial mismanagement rather than addressing root causes. The bakery now operated with professional oversight that Dad initially resisted but gradually appreciated as it relieved pressure he had carried alone for years. Tyler's continued recovery revealed his genuine technical talents, leading to advancement at the technology company where he now worked legitimately. Mom discovered leadership capabilities previously overshadowed by crisis management, becoming the public face of Sweet Heritage's community engagement. My own future had crystallized in unexpected directions. The financial firm where I interned offered a full-time position in their family business consulting division, recognizing the unique perspective my experience provided. My senior thesis on family business governance attracted attention from a regional business journal, potentially launching a specialized career path I hadn't previously considered. Most importantly, I had learned to distinguish between unhealthy sacrifice and genuine support. Financial independence provided foundation for authentic relationships, where connection came from choice rather than obligation or manipulation. Each family dinner now represented deliberate engagement rather than unquestioned routine, making these gatherings more meaningful, if less frequent. "The bakery's doing better than it has in years," Tyler shared during dessert. "Your marketing ideas actually worked. Dad even admitted it last week." This casual acknowledgement represented significant progress from the defensive resistance I initially encountered. The truth that broke them had also freed them from destructive patterns, creating space for competence previously sabotaged by addiction and secrecy. As we prepared to leave, I found myself wondering how many other families maintained similar facades, sacrificing authentic connection for comfortable illusions. How many other children felt responsible for parents' financial well-being or siblings' poor choices. What might change if more people recognize the courage required to establish boundaries with those we love most? Our story remains unfinished, recovery a daily practice rather than completed achievement. Trust rebuilds slowly, through consistent accountability rather than dramatic gestures. The family photo we took outside the restaurant shows cautious smiles and tentative closeness, a realistic portrayal of our healing journey. The most valuable lesson emerged from the most painful choice. Sometimes walking away creates the only path toward authentic connection. By refusing to sacrifice my future for their secrets, I ultimately helped create possibility for everyone's genuine growth. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this journey. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own well-being? What boundaries have you established to protect your future while maintaining family relationships? Drop your experiences in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to support more conversations about these difficult family dynamics. Thank you for witnessing my story, and remember that sometimes the most loving choice isn't the easiest one. Standing your ground might just be the gift your family needs most.